Hello, ding, 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 welcome back. I am Linnea Bond, the Health and Environmental Education Director for Physicians for Social Responsibility Pennsylvania. You will see me talking more later, but right now, I am delighted to introduce our keynote speaker. I first met Bilal Motley in Chester as he was working on the film that would become his documentary about the incinerator in Chester, Pennsylvania, which is where Bilal grew up. It's an environmental justice neighborhood that has many polluting facilities, including the incinerator, and you saw in Lauren Minsky's presentation earlier, also the Delta refinery and the Braskem refinery as well. And so Bilal is a documentarian. I went back then and I got to watch Midnight Oil, which was his first documentary about working in the PES refinery until the day it exploded, where he ran toward the emergency and prevented Philadelphians like me from experiencing a much, much worse outcome than the destruction of the PES refinery. So yeah, I do think he deserves applause for that. We're very lucky to have him as a board member. And you can see him lecturing at film festivals around the world. You can access his work on his website, bilalmotley.com. And as he's still creating documentaries, he's also the facilities director for Johnson & Johnson, and he'll talk a little bit about all of the intersecting work that he's done and perspectives. Thanks, Bilal.
Hello, everybody. I love this city. Any opportunity to come back to Pittsburgh, it's the coolest city, all the bridges. I love it here. Anybody from here? Anybody? See, wow, okay. I love it here. So thank you very much. So most of my work, I started making films as Linnea said, in 2020. I was working at the oil refinery in South Philly, right? And I always wanted to be an artist, and most of my work is about confronting environmental injustice through film. So I think someone defined this earlier, I forgot the name, but I always like to look at what is environmental justice, right? The term coined by Robert Bullard. Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people in environmental laws and policies, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income. So where I'm from, in Chester, Pennsylvania, anybody know the soccer team, the Philadelphia Union, where they play? So that's where Chester is. Chester's about 10 miles south of Philadelphia. This town of 30,000 people, beautiful people, brilliant, but we're inundated with polluters, and as Linnea said, oil refinery, America's largest trash incinerator, getting trash from as far away as Puerto Rico and Canada. Think about that for a second. New York, Philadelphia is diabolical, right? So that's the work I do, and I always like to go back to this term, like, what is environmental justice? So everything, we have journalists in the room, we have scientists, we have artists. Oh, y'all laugh. That's little old me. I was about 5 years old. That's in Chester, right? And that's my mom you see in the middle of the picture, Gladys McGee Motley, so why do I do this work, right? My mom, I had no idea at the time with my Kermit the Frog little costume, right? My mom would die like 6 months later at the age of 29 with 4 kids. Sit in that for a second, right? So when this work gets hard, when you have governments against the work that you do, when you're against corporations, the Sunoco refinery was against me when I spoke out about it. I go back to that. Like that's why I do this work. So when it gets hard, like I almost moved, I wrote on my index card, in 2020, we were gonna move to Canada, right? Me and my family and my 2 kids. But why do I leave? This is my country too. Like, why should I leave when my people built this country? Like, why should I leave? There are days I do wonder, why should I should have left because it's ridiculous. I won't be nonpartisan, I know, I won't say anything. But this is why I do this work. So when it gets hard, go back to that. That's what keeps me going the days I want to leave, when I want to call my immigration attorney and say, I'm getting the heck out of here. That's what keeps me going, because my mom ran away from Mississippi at 13 by herself, got on the train, came to Chester, Pennsylvania, of all places, and said, I'm here to marry a millionaire. She found out she had an aunt that lived up there. I want to marry a millionaire, and as my dad said, she met my broke ass. That's my dad's line. So always go back to your why. That's what keeps me going when I'm afraid to come up here. And I talk all the time. I get a little adrenaline going, but I always go back to that. Nothing can beat that connection I had with her for those 6 years. Nothing. No fear, no government, nothing can beat that. So I went to, growing up in Chester, I was a track star, played basketball. My biggest rival was Kobe Bryant. He went to Lower Marion. He was a couple years ahead of me, right? Like, great sports town, Chester. So I went to UConn, and then after UConn, ran track up there. I came back to Philadelphia. I bounced around, was in Europe before that, studied abroad in England. Like, after the Iraq War, I'm just all over the place. But I found a home in Philadelphia. So Philadelphia is home to a cluster of polluting industries, but none looms larger than the oil refinery that has been there since 1867. I got a job there. It changed my life. Like, you don't even need a college degree. You're making like $200,000 a year. Think about that. No student loans. Like, we were killing it. And then you have a feeling of you feel invincible, right? So I was there for 15 years. It's been there it was built right after the Civil War, the largest on the East Coast, and it's the longest continually run refinery in the world. So I felt invincible, right? I got married in Paris. I can do whatever I want. But then one day, it was about 4:30 a.m., June 19th, 2019. I had an hour left in my shift. So you know you're about to go on vacation, you're like looking at the clock. I was about to go to Martha's Vineyard. We was about to be lit. It was, you know what I mean? I'm like looking at the clock. And then this happens. I hear on the radio, reports of a fire. The hydrofluoric acid unit catches fire. Any scientists in the room or biology majors? Like, hydrofluoric acid is the most dangerous chemical in the world. And we were afraid of this place. And I was like, oh no. I hesitated. I've responded to 1 million fires there. But this one, I was like, oh no. So we had to account for each other. And luckily, no one died. But well, I guess I can say this now. There were tanks flying everywhere. Tanks almost hit the Platte Bridge. Anybody ever go to Philly near the airport? There's a bridge when you enter in the city. There were tanks that were like very close. Like, it was a disaster. And instantly, more than 1,000 of us lost our jobs. So all the supporting businesses, all the, that income, like, it's just gone. And I ran the wastewater treatment department and the boiler house. So I had to deal with the EPA all the time and the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. So in 2018, we had a lot of environmental incidences where our wastewater, we could not control the rainwater. And I started to question, like, why? Why is it raining more than when I started in 2006? And then after the plant exploded, I spoke up. An NPR article, my friends started sharing my address, death threats. Like, that's the cost of speaking up. I thought speaking up was fun. Like, I'd be like James Baldwin and Tupac, all my heroes. You know what I mean? It's not fun. I can see why people don't speak up in government or wherever, So it was 5,000 pounds of hydrofluoric acid. It was minor injuries, property damages. Instantly, thousands of us lost our jobs. And it was all because of a small piece of piping. We missed that on our inspections a few years earlier. And that's why it happened. So that was the view. It took us like 18 hours to put this fire out. We were there. I was already there a 12-hour shift. It was a disaster. And as I was there, I was depressed. When you run the wastewater treatment department, right? The EPA requires you're the last ones there. So you got to handle all the rainwater because you have the Schuylkill River that surrounds the plant, right? So I was one of the last ones there, but I always wanted to be an artist, and I was already writing a script called Midnight Oil. And then I started to notice shots. I was like, that looks cool. That was one of the first shots I took. With my iPhone 6, I use what I have. You don't need all the equipment that I thought I needed from Hollywood. My iPhone 6, I started framing shots, and I started to film my experiences. And that's me on a night shift. I used to hide. Nobody knew I was doing this. I don't always ask for permission. You just got to do it. And then, so I was always concerned about what the refinery would do to me, but I never really thought about the fence line community. Like, the fence line community is black and brown people in the Grace Ferry area of South Philly. I'm from Chester. They look just like the people that I grew up with, but even I have to admit that, because I hate to be a fraud, even I ignored them. I'm killing it there. I don't live in that neighborhood. I live in Delaware, in Claymont, Delaware. And even I didn't even, I was barely aware of their work until I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I started filming the Fence Line Community Group. My coworkers found that out. They were very angry. They still don't speak to me about that, but I had to do it. So the challenges of filming affected communities, these communities, they build up years of mistrust. So even when I approached them, I showed up to a meeting and said, I'm sorry, right? Yes, did I technically pollute the place on my units? No, not per se, but I said, I'm sorry. So they gave me a hug and stuff. I met the Grace Ferry community. And then sometimes, but then the challenges of filming communities like this is that when you're trying to show both sides, a true artist shows all sides. And they can get angry, because like, why are you filming this person who was against us or did this? So it's not as easy as it seems, but I must cover all stakeholders as I'm doing this art. So as Linnea mentioned, so I'm from Chester, America's largest trash incinerator, which growing up, I thought it was a cookie factory. I had no idea what this thing was. Because we couldn't get jobs there. Someone mentioned that earlier. They have ribbon cutting ceremonies when they put these places in black and brown communities, right? And they promise jobs, it's mostly security jobs, which is, not downgrading that, but they tout it as one thing. They co-opt the local politicians, they have a ribbon cutting ceremony, but then there's only like 5 residents from Chester in that plant. But at the ribbon cutting ceremony, you can imagine what they promised, right? So it's all a joke. So this is the hardest film I ever had to make. It's about my hometown. My dad grew up with the mayor who was for the place, at the previous mayor who was for the place. My dad grew up with him and said, that was the most difficult film that I ever made. So basically the things I want to say is, I almost left my country, my hometown, because I couldn't take it anymore with what's happening, right? But just hearing everybody in this room, all the people collecting data, all the journalists, it does keep me going a little bit. And I think everything works together. Data, journalism, and activism, and visual medium. Like when you're telling a story, don't just say numbers, as someone mentioned that earlier. Don't just say the asthma rates in Chester are 4 times the national average for children. You'd say something like, a child had to miss a few days of school, like a week's worth of school. That's how you drive it home. And the parent, like my wife and I, we're privileged enough where one of us can work from home, right? But everybody can't do that. That's how you drive it home. You make it personal. That's how you do true storytelling. So currently in Chester, in Philadelphia City Council, they have the Stop Trashing Our Air Act right now. They're still going through that. I'm pretty sure some have heard about that. And my wife, Dr. Kristen Motley, is the health commissioner. She's working on that in Chester. And House Bill 109, which was shot down, that was being worked on as well, that takes into account, when you build these facilities, you have to account for what's already there. Like the trash incinerator is permitted like it's the only thing there. So of course you're gonna meet your permit, right? And the same thing at the oil refinery. But there are people doing this work. So this does give me hope. There are days where I was like, why didn't make you want to call the immigration attorney? But this is our country. This is our work. Let's just keep doing our thing. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Yes, thanks, Tanya. My next film is called Farewell America, right? So you see in the wording, what I said there, it has double entendre, right? So it covers the 4 years where, from 2020, we were going back and forth to Toronto. I was out. I was going to be up there with Trudeau and them and Drake. He lost the battle anyway to Kendrick, but I was going to be up there. But it's just not the same. Like America, we are very interesting. We're a hot mess. We're brilliant. We're ridiculous. We're everything. But up there, I just didn't feel the same love. My family's here. You know what I mean? I couldn't leave my family in Chester. They can't leave. I can easily leave, but I couldn't do it. So you cover us for 4 years. You see our election night through our eyes, what happened in that November. And yeah, it just got accepted into a film festival in Toronto. So I made it so they can see themselves through the film. And they have issues too. No place is perfect. So yes, farewell, America. Yeah. That, I wasn't going to release it because the film industry is cowardly. Nobody want, like, there's something radical about, as simple as a black family, just tell them what it is. And that's all we're doing over 4 years. In our household, you're in our kitchens, and it's pretty radical. I think people are afraid to touch it until this film festival just accepted it. So I don't know. I'm not, I really don't know. Might just show it private screenings and things like that. But yeah, the film industry, like most corporations, are just cowardly, to be honest with you. So most people are afraid to show it. So yeah.